So Lil Duval recently tweeted, and I'm going to read this tweet. Matter of fact, let me read it the way I felt he did. I hate black people. Now let me not do it like that. Because, he got that whole smile thing. Okay, so anyways, let me not be. I don't know what's
That's
wrong with me
funny.
today.
Look at
I
you.
don't know
Look
what's
at
wrong with me
you.
today.
Doing impersonations and
So,
shit. I see you.
I hate black people that think they're better than hood folks. They are the most racist to me. And so I personally have some issues with Lil Duval anyways, because he be saying some off the wall shit to me, especially as it pertains to black people. That comes off as pretty anti-black to me. But I'm really curious to hear, what do you think about this whole hood folks with, I'm just gonna call it this, the elite black folks being racist.
Well, first I'll say, because we didn't reference it, right? Clearly, the universe did not really want us to premiere today. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm gonna break the fourth wall real quick. I ain't gonna hold you. Like, in my gut, in my spirit, we was like supposed to premiere, obviously, this week. And it was like, you know what? Let's push it back. Let's do something different this episode. And so, obviously, in real time, I think that was good, right? Because I feel like if this was a premiere, woo! You know what I'm saying? So, woo. Shout out to sometimes letting the universe. Okay. So I'm going to start there. Shout out to letting the universe. But this particular topic is interesting to me because I'm kind of split a little bit, if I'm being honest, right? And then we talked a little bit about this episode being like getting to know you a little bit, right? So I think for some of these remaining topics, right, we should probably tap in a little bit, right? Let's get to know each other a little bit more. And what do I mean by that, right? So I grew up poor. You know what I'm saying? My parents immigrated to this country and they met in New York and they fell in love and they had me. And really, for a majority of my life, I mean, my parents were like working poor. You know what I'm saying? Both of them worked kind of hard. And so I've always identified with the underdog, the whole idea of getting it out of the mud, right? That's always been me. I remember growing up and I read this book. It was like Of Your Own Kind. I forgot the name of it, but that was kind of the general sentiment of it. I think they even made a TV show about it, like, but essentially it was about the black bourgeois, you know what I'm saying? Like the uppity blacks, you know what I'm saying? The ones who might have had like doctors, like in 1920, somebody was a dentist type of shit, right? And I remember after I got married, we had moved to New Jersey and we were living in the second story of a home that a young lady owned. And she had to be around our age, but she came from that family life. And here we were, both of us, right, from different backgrounds, my wife and I, but of hardworking, working class, right? But you can kind of tell it's a little different. And I remember that feeling of people coming across that they were better than someone. So I first read the book. I don't know how I came across the book, but it certainly kind of gave, the people who do the Jack and Jills and all that. What I'm saying is, I was on the other side of feeling like people were looking down. Black people, right? Like there was a difference. It was like you weren't really of us. We were the ones who had this type of tradition, et cetera, et cetera. So honestly, that kind of underdog feeling is something that remains with me. So while I do understand what Lil Duval is saying, I disagree with him still, because I don't technically think it's not, first of all, I don't think it's racism. I think there can be an argument that there's racism there, but really what he's talking about is classism. Right. And if we're really being honest, as many of us who move through different classes, who've had the opportunity to move through different classes, some of us do suffer from looking downism. Right. Some of us do adapt to a certain level of classism to where so I understand what he is saying. And I generally probably would agree with him, but I think he used the wrong words. Right. And I don't think he was very articulate. Not that he was supposed to be, right. He's a comedian, but the sentiment of what he's talking about is, I think, really a good conversation also. Right. Because how many of us harbor some of those feelings, whether we were from the mud or some of us who were never came from the mud, we will see other black people. And yes, we look down on them. Like how honest are we going to be about that? So I get that we don't like him as much, SNL, but do you disagree with his sentiments and I guess literally what he was saying?
So I would say that I disagree with the whole racism. I do agree that it's classism. I do believe that it was a wrong term used. And I actually think it's a disservice to us as a community, because when we start, the classism, right, is a way to keep us divided. Now, what I won't take away is those who did get it from the mud and they left the hood, right, as they called it, right? Because the hood is basically just a neighborhood. And so therefore the area that you lived in that has been basically demonized to be something with negative connotations, right? And so I will acknowledge that the people who left the hood to go into the suburbs or wherever the case may be, that is an accomplishment for those people if they so deem it as an accomplishment because they're like, hey, look what I did. I disagree that the ones who do leave are looking down with the idea of race, right? I will agree that there is some elitism going on there because they feel like they've done it, but I wonder how many of those people actually reach back to the hood to help the hood because part of the reason why we don't I'll just say to me, part of the reasons why we're not growing and maturing economically is because we have a tendency to become so independently focused on just ourselves. Once we leave the hood, that we don't take the time to go back. Like for example, I love Nipsey Hussle because he understood the whole, hey, let me go back to the hood. I love the whole buy the block concept and because it goes back to, hey, let me uplift the hood. Now we'll also acknowledge that there are cases where sometimes you can't just uplift the hood because that's how Nipsey Hussle got killed because he was trying to uplift the hood. So sometimes that elitism is deserved because on the same token, hood folks kind of low key be hating on the folks who left the hood. And so I feel like it's a reciprocal type of relationship, but it's built on I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. I think it's built on this whole concept of you think you're better than me, but you're not better than me, but crab in the barrel because I want what you have, so I'm going to take it the way I want to take it, and so forth. Versus us reaching a mutual understanding to help and build each other up, right? And so to answer the question short and simple, because it seemed like I played Ring Around the Rosie with it, I will say this. I believe that he used the wrong words is actually classism that he's looking for. I don't like Little Duval in general. And so I may come from a slightly biased perspective in that regards. But I think that he does have a valid point in the sense that sometimes Black folks do look down on other folks, but it's not just hood folks. As a matter of fact, we can date it back to the Frederick Douglass days when they were looking down on folks who, or matter of fact, we can even go back to slavery if we wanted to, but we're not going to go that far back because, the house Negroes and the field Negroes and how the house Negroes felt better because they was in the house versus the field, or so they claim. So I think this is through time and just another way to keep us divided. So, but since Jay's back, and before Nick get on me for playing Ring Around the Rosie with that question, uh,
Yeah, so let me step in before somebody throws a flag, blows a whistle. Um, so I first let me say I understand the people who move away. All right, as a person who was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, and someone who once they left Mississippi rarely goes back, may spend 24 hours there, if that. I get moving away. I moved out of my neighborhood, and like I said, now I just out of my neighborhood, out of the state, right? A couple of times. There are some people who feel like the world is bigger and bigger than their hood. Feel like the world is bigger than the opportunities that they've seen around them, and they move on from those. And there's no reason to look down on the people who chose to stay. Only except sometimes the people who chose to stay, it's because not because they couldn't dream bigger, but they were afraid to dream bigger. And those people that you don't want to be around because when you're in the hood there and you are doing well, your flex looks like you're rubbing in their faces. So I think that as you matriculate economically through this society, there is some distance that can be gained between us and the people we grew up with. Now, does that mean we all have to move out and like turn our back on the hood, so to speak? No. But I personally for me to go back to Mississippi, right, I would have to go back as the economic powerhouse. I'd have to go back with opportunity, go back with jobs. I wouldn't want to go back into the same impoverished attitudes or conditions or whatever that I came from. If I'm not going to be able to make it better, I don't want to sit in there in the middle of it and pretend like I don't have. And I also don't want to sit in there and, have all mine together with everybody else and they have nothing, right? It is a village, and we do need that village mentality, and we don't need to be divided by class. But at the same time, I'm gonna do S&M's ring around the rosy thing because it's it's a really nuanced topic. At the same time, there are mindsets. There are mindsets that move you out of your condition you were born in and move you to a better condition, right? And there are also mindsets that stay in the conditions that we're born in, even if we don't like them. There are some mindsets that still stay in them. Those two mindsets can't hang together.